Do you remember years ago on the television they used to call little snippets of information public information films? They couldn't be called adverts because they weren't paid. There were things that the government and the council messages they wanted to get over, like road safety and that kind of stuff, and learn to swim, Petuna. Do you remember all those? Anyway, that's because you're old. They were called public information films, and what I'm doing here is a public information video. So it's a PIV. It's similar. And you're probably watching this if you're just about to upgrade your TV. We have two TVs here that are technically 11 years apart. That is an old one. That is a new one. So let's just say, for instance, that you have got, like this is, a 40-inch TV. You've had it for many years. It's just started to go wrong, or you just think it's about time that you upgraded and had something different. But of course you want to stay the same size, because quite simply this fits into your living room beautifully. You've got it on a wonderful stand, or it fits in a little cubby hole. Isn't that a great name, cubby hole? Not too sure if that's a northern expression, maybe not. But anyway, so your TV, which is 40-inch or whatever size it is, fits in your little living room fantastic, and you don't want to change that. So you've got a 40-inch, you're now going to buy a 40-inch. Well, these two TVs look very, very similar in size. In fact, probably the one on the left-hand side here looks a little bit bigger than the one on the right-hand side. But amazingly, the one on the right-hand side is actually much bigger. Well, I say much, 3 inches. But 3 inches matter, especially if you've only got a short space to fit everything in. And so I'm just making this film to point out a couple of important things if you are buying a brand new TV. Just because your old TV was a 40-inch and you're going to go out and buy a 40-inch doesn't mean it's going to fit. In fact, it will fit, but you will be in for a bit of a shock. There's going to be a big size difference, because unlike washing machines, fridges, freezers, dishwashers, cookers, that all have a, is it a 600 mil? I think you can get some that are 500 mil, but most of them are 600 mil. Over the decades, those sizes have stayed exactly the same, so it can slot into the slot in your kitchen and you don't have any problem fitting it in. The rules and regulations for televisions are nothing like that whatsoever. So let me just explain something to you. This TV on the left-hand side, which looks slightly bigger on the right-hand side, this is a 40-inch. And amazingly, the one that looks smaller, this one here, is a 43-inch. Now, I'm sure you know how to measure when it comes to screen size, because when I say they're 43-inch, I'm talking about screen size. And you measure from corner to corner, diagonally for the screen size. But of course, if you're in your local electrical retailer place and you want to find out if a TV fits, you're probably going to take a tape measure and go from there to there, which does make sense. And on this will be about 36.5 inches. But just don't expect, there's two things you need to bear in mind if you're upgrading. Don't expect buying a 40-inch TV today is going to be the same size as a 40-inch yesterday. In fact, if anything, the new TV, you do need to add on about 3 inches. And the reason why, well, I'll give you a close-up, but it's around the edge of the TV screen. The design was much different then. There you go. There's at least an inch bezel around the edge of the screen there, which actually makes the TV look a lot bigger. Now, as I said, this TV is about 10 years old. Most 10-year-old TVs have bezels that are about that size. As the years went past, the bezels got smaller and smaller and smaller until the bezel disappeared almost completely. Look, no bezel. That screen is actually glued down to a plastic frame behind. There is no bezel holding it in. So just bear that in mind, because once again, that TV on the left-hand side, the old one, is a 40-inch. Get it right, Alan. This one on the right hand side is a 43 inch. Now you can go and buy a 40 inch, but what you're going to have to bear in mind, it's possibly going to be that much smaller there, that much smaller there, and again all around. So if you swap a 40 for a 40, an older TV for a new TV, as soon as you sit down and switch it on or put it on your living room table, you're going to notice straight away that it's smaller. And it's going to be a lot smaller. So top tip, take a tape measure just to make sure that everything fits, because don't forget, this has a 43 inch screen, that has a 40 inch screen, but technically the smaller screen size is still a bigger TV. So when you're upgrading, you really need to add on a few more inches. And it's exactly the same if you're upgrading a 32 inch, if you're upgrading a 50 inch, 55 and 65 inch. They have changed. The bezels are much smaller, if not like this, non-existent. So do bear that in mind if you're treating yourself to another television. Otherwise, by the time you've unpacked it and put it on your table, you suddenly realise that it just doesn't look as good. And you wish you would have gone a little bit bigger. And you should, at least 3 inches. But again, take a tape measure. The other thing to bear in mind, and so many people make this mistake, can you see the obvious difference between these two TVs? It's not always noted. People cannot notice it for some particular reason, and they get it home and they have a problem. Again, 10 years ago, and still today to a certain extent, TVs came with stands, which you had in the middle, so you could put it on a table. And as long as your table was a little bit bigger than the stand, you were fine. But let's say you've just got a 2-foot table. Well, that stand's going to fit on there perfectly and everything's going to be fine. But then you buy your upgraded TV and the stand has gone. They've now got feet which are right on the edge. So if you've only got a 2.5 foot table, this TV ain't going to go on there. And it possibly means you're going to start buying some new furniture for your living room just because you didn't check. So 2 things to bear in mind. If you're swapping a 40 inch for a 40 inch, you're probably going to get a smaller TV because the new ones haven't got any bezels. Stick another 3 inches in, take a tape measure, and that will help you out. And do bear in mind, if the TV that you have now has a stand, just double check that your new one has a stand too, or at least check if it has feet, that it is going to fit on the table you've got. And then there's going to be no arguments and you can't blame anybody else. Thank you very much. I hope this helped.